hills of eastern Washington keeps resurfacing. A bottomless pit said to be a pathway to the paranormal.
The drone's camera cut through the darkness and plunged into the yawning void of the pit that has haunted legends and inspired countless questions. A deep chasm Washington state has whispered about for decades. The machine descended into the mouth of the infamous hole, and what it captured shook even the hardiest of skeptics. That descent into the pit felt like a voyage into another realm, where light behaves strangely and gravity seemed to hesitate. The footage opens with the smooth rotation of the drone's lens, the ambient hush of the woods above giving way to a deep blackness. Then the walls of the shaft appear, slick and rising indefinitely, lit by the machine's own beam, and the camera drops further. Shadows dance where nothing should be, and a faint otherworldly luminescence pulses from far beneath. The moment the feed stabilizes, the world watching realizes that something unanticipated lies ahead, something beyond mere geology. The hole is no longer a local legend. It is a living mystery, now illuminated. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The place is known to many as the legendary pit called Mel's Hole, a name that evokes both curiosity and dread. The story began decades ago with strange claims of depth so profound that no measurement could reach bottom. Now, scientists and technicians armed with drone technology have turned myth into recorded reality. The descent of the drone is the first time an unmanned vehicle has entered the abyss long speculated to be infinite. What transpired during that plunge challenges the boundary between the known and the unimaginable. From the moment the machine entered the hole's opening, something felt off. The immediate transition from forest to infinite void left the operators uneasy. There was no echo of the propellers, no ambient air hum. The walls of the shaft swallowed sound, and the camera's microphone recorded only the faint mechanical whir of its motors. As the drone descended further, the light beam illuminated slick, wet rock. Mineral veins glimmered. The descent never seemed to bottom out, though. After minutes that felt like hours, the hole still stretched downward. The leveling instruments of the drone indicated a near vertical drop extending far beyond ordinary shafts. At some point, the machine's sensors began to register anomalous readings. Magnetic fluctuations, subtle temperature shifts, pressure differentials that suggested the interior wasn't simply a collapsed mine or natural well. Mid-descent, the feed showed a startling phenomenon. A soft, glowing, filament-like structure running along one wall, perhaps metallic, perhaps organic, beneath incrustations of mineral deposits. It pulsed gently, as though sensing the drone's presence. At that moment, the operators exchanged audible breaths. The literature surrounding the pit had always hinted at strange energy, active animals refusing to approach, devices malfunctioning. Now those whisperings crystallized into visible data. The drone's thermal sensors picked up pockets of cold air sinking past the camera, as though the hole was actively drawing in the atmosphere of the forest above. The beam illuminated a drop-off where the rock formation suddenly left space and the camera drifted into near pitch black again. Then a faint flicker of light appeared far below, not from the drone but something else. The image wavered and the feed momentarily cut out, only to resume seconds later to reveal something shocking. What the drone captured at that depth is what terrifies the world. It is perhaps the most dramatic turn in the saga of this bottomless chasm. The camera brought into view a vast open cavern, whose dimensions defied expectations. The drone hovered in midair, its lights casting a murky glow across an enormous chamber. Stalactites hung like thousands of frozen fingers, and enormous boulders sat unmoved for millennia. But in the midst of all this inert geological grandeur lay something alive, or more accurately, something changed. There were shapes moving in the shadows, silhouettes drifting along the cavern walls, morphing forms with slow, deliberate movement as though aware of the drone. One of these forms separated from the wall and approached the light. Its surface glistened as though made of water and stone simultaneously, and its contour looked vaguely humanoid yet not human. The drone's laser rangefinder attempted to lock on but reflected erratically. The reading oscillated weirdly, as though the target both existed and did not exist in our space. At that moment, the drone's onboard systems registered a spike in electromagnetic interference. The feed turned green-tinged for a second. The signal stuttered, then a high-pitched whine cut in. The machine compensated, descended further, following the moving shape into deeper darkness. The ambient air around the drone seemed to distort. Light bent in unexpected ways. Then the cameras caught the formation of a swirling vortex of sediment and mist rising from a fissure in the cavern floor. It was slow, silent, and ominous. The drone hovered, and then a sudden tremor coursed through the chamber. The walls resonated as though the cavern itself were breathing. The creature, or entity, withdrew into the fissure and vanished. The drone tilted and backed out, but the readings stayed anomalous. Depth sensors went off the scale. The drone's telemetry logged a drop in gravitational acceleration, suggesting the tunnel went beyond normal geology. Then the feed ended. What this means is staggering. First, the existence of a subterranean void of such scale defies standard geological models. Normally, rock strata at shallow depths collapse under their own weight or fill with groundwater. Yet here is a shaft, open, vast, and seemingly stable, without any signs of filling, erosion, or water. Reports had indicated that nothing thrown into the hole ever seemed to hit bottom and nothing came back, and the drone's descent confirmed that nothing normal lies within. The discovery demands that geologists revisit their assumptions about the Earth's crust in this region. Secondly, the presence of what appears to be living or quasi-living forms in the depths of the void raises existential questions. If the shapes captured are indeed biological or at least dynamic structures, then either life has found a way to exist miles beneath the surface under extreme conditions, or something entirely different is at play. Some kind of entity or mechanism we have no frame of reference for. The implications ripple outward. Microbial extremophiles aside, nothing known in biology approaches this scale or behavior underground. It touches on questions of what life is, where it can exist, and what forms it might take beyond our conceptions. Thirdly, the anomalies in physical measurement, magnetic fluctuations, gravity shifts, light distorting effects, hint at realms that may intersect with mainstream physics. Perhaps the hole is more than a pit. Perhaps it functions as a boundary or gateway of sorts. Some speculative models would suggest wormholes, spatial distortions, or other phenomena currently relegated to theoretical physics. If there is even a small degree of truth to the readings, humanity's understanding of space, matter, and the Earth itself must expand. Fourth, the drone mission itself signals how technology is now enabling the exploration of places previously inaccessible, and this event will accelerate interest and investment in subterranean exploration. It sets a precedent. We can send machines into craft spaces other than the deep sea or outer space. The deep underground, once largely off limits, is now in reach. That shift in capability also implies responsibility. If we discover things down there, how do we interact? Who governs access? What safeguards exist? The world is about to consider those questions seriously. Beyond the scientific, this event is cultural and psychological in magnitude. For decades, the pit has been part of folklore, of late-night radio shows and whispered rumors of bottomless pits and revived animals. Now the myth becomes fact, and the wall between legend and reality erodes. That change stirs a profound sense of wonder mixed with dread. There is a primal human fear of darkness, of what lies beneath, of abyssal depths. That the drone captured something there gives power to those fears. Watching that footage, people across the globe experience a chill. If this exists under our feet, what else might exist? It forces confrontation with the unknown. It also has political and strategic dimensions. The hole is located in a remote region of Washington, but the new information places it firmly on the radar of national and international agencies. Whether this feature holds mineral potential, energy anomalies, or even military implications, many actors will now take note. Governments may reassess underground surveillance, research protocols, and even consider geographic security. The drone's successful descent shows that no point underground is necessarily beyond reach, and that revelation itself has ramifications for sovereignty and secrecy. Then there is the ecological and environmental thread. If the void is real and as extensive as it appears, it might represent a hidden ecosystem, one with its own biology, chemistry, and energy flows. The introduction of technology, the drone, into this environment could carry unknown risks: contamination of microbes, disruption of geological stability, or inadvertent triggering of something unintended. Science is used to dealing with interconnected systems on the surface, but the subsurface frontier is far less understood. There may be consequences we cannot yet imagine, Furthermore, the event raises philosophical and existential questions. Humanity's place on the planet has always been tied to the surface. Oceans, skies, mountains. The deep, cold, dark spaces beneath our feet have been less explored, less inhabited, less known. Yet now we peer into something deep and vast and alien. It prompts reconsideration of the boundaries of human knowledge, the definitions of here and there, above and below. The drone's descent is not just physical, it is symbolic, an exploration of our inner Earth and by extension, our inner selves. In terms of science communication, the event serves as a cautionary tale of hype, caution, and wonder. While the footage is stunning and the implications immense, the world will demand verification, replication, peer review, and transparency. Skeptics will question data integrity, instrumentation errors, even hoaxes. And yet, once the machine returned and the logs were downloaded, it seems the evidence passed preliminary checks. If confirmed, it will be one of the great scientific revelations of the era. This mission could reopen entire research fields: subterranean geology, biospeleology, life in caves, extreme environment microbiology, physics of the crust, and even speculative physics such as wormholes or alternate dimensions. Funding, academic interest, media attention will follow. Universities, labs, independent researchers will mobilize to collaborate and replicate. In that sense, the drone's journey is a catalyst for a wave of inquiry across disciplines. Humanity's appetite for mystery is strong, but the appetite for meaning is stronger. What is this abyss? What are those shapes? What do the anomalous readings indicate? Are we looking at a natural phenomenon we simply misunderstood? Or are we looking at something entirely different? Something that forces us to reconsider the structure and meaning of our world? The answers may reshape textbooks, human understanding of planet Earth, and maybe even our role in the cosmos. On a practical level, the fact that the whole had defied measurement for decades now seems less about human error, and more about encountering something that simply does not conform to known measurement. The drone descended further than any line or weight ever had ended in the legend, yet it encountered the immense cavern rather than a geological bottom. That means the story of depth becomes not about how deep, but about what is down there. The shift from quantity to quality is significant. Instead of asking how many feet or miles, the question becomes, what is the nature of the space? What is occupying it? What is influencing it? The sensory aspect of the footage is evocative. The light beam encountering something alive, something almost sentient. That encounter triggers ancient fears. Holes are metaphors for the unknown, for chaos, for places where rules break down. The fear stems from an intuitive sense that there are places we were not meant to see. The drone descended into one of those places. Even if the shapes turn out to be mineral deformations or bioluminescent microbial mats, the psychological effect remains. The visible evidence of a space beyond normal human reach changes how we perceive the planet's interior. It challenges the comforting notion that what lies beneath is simply earth, rock, and void. There may be much more. Those watching the footage will interpret differently. Scientists see data, engineers see instrumentation, conspiracy theorists see portals, the religious see unseen realms. The fact that all are confronted with the same inch of footage speaks to the power of the event. Something anonymous, dark, and deep has been lit for a moment, and now waits in full view. That shift from hidden to observed carries weight. Beyond what was captured, the process itself matters. In sending a drone, humans externalize their senses, reach into places without risking life. The machine behaved as a surrogate. Its telemetry, camera, sensors became our eyes and ears. And yet what it revealed felt hostile. The machine hovered, then responded to invisible currents, then aborted, as though the cavern said no. This suggests the environment itself may impose constraints or react. If so, then the void is not passive. It may be interactive. That prospect raises questions. If an environment underground can impose forces strong enough to disrupt technology, what are the limits of our exploration? How do we prepare? This event signals that exploration beneath the surface may soon match complexity with outer space missions, entailing similar risks and costs. The timing of the discovery also matters. We are in an era when interest in underground resources, habitat, and carbon capture is growing. The world is looking downward as well as upward. That the abyss beneath us might be hiding something profound aligns with that shift. If subterranean realms hold unusual physical phenomena or ecosystems, they may become strategic assets or ethical dilemmas. The footage could spark debates about access rights, research sovereignty, environmental protection, and even commercialization of the deep earth. For the local region, the impact will be palpable. The legacy of the pit has been that of myth. Now it may become a site of scientific tourism, restricted access, scholarship, or government classification. Local residents, landowners, regulators will find themselves at the intersection of curiosity and caution. The story of a small hole in rural Washington has become global. The ripple outwards is unstoppable. Universities issuing statements, journals reaching out for data, media covering the descent. The world is realizing that a remote valley might house something worthy of the greatest minds. At a deeper level, this event invites reflection on the limits of human perception and scale. Many of us assume the Earth is mapped, the surface explored, the underworld for mining and caves, but the whole demonstrates that inertia of assumption is dangerous. What we don't know far outweighs what we do. For centuries, subterranean exploration has led to caves, voids, aquifers, but none of those approaches the enormity described here. That means the sphere of the unknown remains vast. The drone's descent is a marker. We have moved from metaphor into measured footage. The gap between myth and science narrows. As the footage from the drone's descent into the void continued to unravel, the implications grew ever more profound. The moment the machine's lights captured the cavernous interior, the world shifted. No longer was this simply a hole on a map or a piece of fringe folklore. It became a tangible, measurable anomaly demanding attention. The depth sensor's failure was not merely an instrumentation error. It underlined the fact that whatever lay beneath could exceed our capacity to quantify. When the camera illuminated that vast space, it revealed walls that in some sections seemed ancient yet untouched, as though sealed off from time itself. The ceiling of the cavern was lit only by the drone's beam. In that glow, we saw draperies of mineral deposits, thin curtains of sediment clinging to rock, and strange cavities that seemed to open into further darkness. The environment inside was unexpectedly dynamic. The drone's thrusters stirred particles suspended in the air. Tiny motes of dust or maybe organic flake drifted sluggishly, rather than immediately falling. The air itself seemed heavier, slower. Sensors reported humidity and temperature gradients unfamiliar to such altitudes. There were cold pockets that hovered beyond the beam's reach and warm currents that slithered along fissures in the rock. At one point, the drone recorded a hiss, a faint, sustained sound like air slowly escaping into a cavernous chamber. The microphone picked it up, though muffled, and the tone shifted pandemonium into possibility. It suggested ventilation, or a pathway for fluids or gases deep underground. But the lack of expected echo deepened the mystery. The walls absorbed sound like an enormous sponge. In effect, the drone had entered a place outside the rules we know. Those moving shapes in the dim light refused to be categorized easily. They resembled no known subterranean creature. Their motion was too deliberate for debris stirred by the drone, too non-linear for hallucination. Whether biological or something else, their presence shifts the paradigm. We have long believed that the deep earth is either lifeless or hosts only microbial extremophiles. This footage challenges that. If these shapes are alive, then life can adapt to environments far beyond our current catalog. If they are not alive, then they are still active in some fashion, responding, moving, shifting. And that opens what is perhaps the most unsettling possibility, that there exist interior spaces within the planet that function by rules we don't yet understand, that host processes invisible to surface science. The fact that the drone's readings fluctuated, magnetometer spikes, gravity sensor oddities, stands out. If these readings are accurate, they hint at local anomalies in the gravitational field, or perhaps distortions in the magnetic labyrinth we assume runs beneath us. The abyss itself might be influencing physical laws on a microscale. That suggests that this is not simply a passive geologic feature. It may be an active zone. Perhaps the void is the center of flows and forces unseen. Perhaps what appears to be emptiness is in fact a nexus, a confluence of forces where boundaries blur. For centuries, geology has been premised on relative uniformity of the crust. This change demands revision of that assumption. In light of all that, the event draws new urgency for subterranean exploration. Humans have made tremendous progress on the surface. We have mapped the oceans, we have sent machines into space, we have drilled and probed, but this shows there remain vast domains beneath our feet that are still off-grid. The surprise is not merely that we found something, but that it forced us to confront how little we truly know about the subsurface. The drone's descent should mark the start of a program of systematic exploration into geology, biology, physics, ecology that spans downward rather than outward. Instruments need redesigning for this realm. Light behaves differently, waves shift, sensors fail. Engineering for that environment becomes a priority. Beyond the technical, the psychological shock cannot be underestimated. The sheer volume of darkness, the sense of an open universe beneath our feet, flips our orientation. We are used to looking up at the stars for wonder. Now we look down and see something equally alien. There is a humility in realizing that the ground beneath us is not necessarily stable, known, or simple. The drone captured vastness, uncertainty, and agency. For many, that sight triggers a more primal response than outer space exploration ever could: the fear of the unknown beneath. It speaks to bedrock fears, of bottomless pits, of things that wait in darkness, of the inadequacy of human sight and measurement. On the cultural front, this will resonate. In towns near the shaft, even if the exact location remains classified or restricted, the narrative changes. What was once legend becomes field study. Local lore will interweave with scientific inquiry, and the region may become a zone of heightened awareness. Economically and socially, the area could become a hub for research or for restricted access. Landowners may find themselves negotiating with agencies and corporations. Questions of land rights, indigenous claims, environmental protection all converge. What was once a remote hole in the ground becomes a site of global interest. And with that interest comes complexity. Security concerns, contamination concerns, access for science weighed against preservation of mystery. Think also of the symbolic implications. The idea of depth has always had metaphorical weight. Depth of knowledge, depth of being, depth of mystery. The drone's journey into that pit is not just physical. It crosses boundaries between known and unknown, surface and subsurface, mythology and measurement. It suggests that beneath the everyday world lies a layer of potential revelation. And that layer is not at some remote place in the universe, it is under our feet. The event shakes the division between human domain and hidden domain. It implies that the surface world is only one layer of many, and there may be entire realms tucked beneath, perhaps interacting with our world in ways we have yet to understand. Scientifically, there will be pressing questions. What is the origin of the void? Was it formed geologically, or is it the result of some process outside standard geology? If the cavern is indeed enormous and stable, why was it not filled by collapse or water? Could there be unknown structural supports, maybe vast arches of rock or cavities carved by forces beyond erosion and tectonics? And what fuels the activity inside? Those shapes, the currents, the turbulence? If life is present, what energy source sustains it? Could it be geothermal or radioactive or some form of electromagnetic field? If physics is distorted locally, what does that imply for our models? Might there be areas beneath the surface where space and time behave slightly differently? These questions may push university departments to revise courses, fund new equipment, and recruit specialists in node disciplines: subterranean ecosystem science, deep geophysics, dark space biology. Consider also that this problem extends to the idea of risk. If there is an interior void of such scale, what are the hazards? Could the cavern be unstable? Could access trigger a collapse or release of trapped gases or fluids? If the void is connected to fault zones, could human activity trigger seismic events? If there are unexplored flows of energy or matter, what happens when we intervene? The event reminds us that exploration is not always benign. When we peer into darkness, we may wake it. The drone survived, but if we send humans or begin sampling, we must anticipate consequences. And that ethical framework must be built into planning now. On a global scale, the possibility of such a void challenges the way we interpret planet formation and interior structure. Earth science tends to treat the crust and mantle as relatively well understood, with voids being limited and rare. But if here is a void that defies measurement and shows life or anomalies, then maybe similar structures may exist in other places, on other planets or moons. The event becomes part of planetary science. If Earth has such places, perhaps Mars or the moons of Jupiter have analogs. This feeds into astrobiology and the study of life in extreme environments. We must broaden our curiosity not only to outer space but to inner space. For the engineering community, the message is clear. Clearance and instrumentation matter. The drone's success underlines that robotics and autonomous systems are increasingly able to venture where humans cannot. But it also shows we need tailor-made systems for deep pits. Lighting designed for no natural reflection, sensors that can calibrate when baseline fails, communication systems that cope with signal loss. Infrastructure for subterranean drop zones may emerge. Tethered drones, long-duration hoverers, sensors left in situ, retrieval systems for samples. The event will likely prompt funding for such subsurface robotics. In addition, protocols for data verification when sensors fail or readings become anomalous will become important. We must learn to trust data that lies beyond our usual calibration regimes. Another domain impacted is public policy. Regulators may need to consider subsurface rights more carefully. Who owns what lies beneath land? What if the void becomes a research site or a protected area? What if companies want to exploit it for minerals or energy or storage? The precedent of exploring deep underground zones is growing: carbon capture, waste storage, underground labs. But this event thrusts into the public consciousness the fact that unforeseen spaces remain. Laws will need to grapple with the new frontier of subsurface sovereignty. The idea that a hole in rural Washington could become globally significant may prompt other regions to examine what lies beneath their own land. We must also reflect on human narrative. The story of descent into darkness draws parallels with myth, of caves and underworlds, of going beneath the world for wisdom or encounter. The drone journey echoes that mythic pattern but uses modern technology. That resonance will shape culture. Art, literature, film will adopt this event as emblematic of the hidden world beneath. It may inspire new genres of exploration, new metaphors about what it means to look within, to face the unseen. The boundaries between science fiction and reality blur, and the public engagement with subterranean science will accelerate. And yet, despite the vastness of what was revealed, much remains veiled. The drone did not traverse every chamber, did not map whole networks, did not identify definitively what those forms were. That gap invites further exploration, but also caution. We have glimpsed the exterior of a deep unknown. We still lack the interior map. The next steps must be deliberate. The rush to drill deeper or lay pipes or exploit may be tempting, but could backfire. The world must learn from this event not just how to explore, but how to do so responsibly. Curiosity must be matched with restraint. In quiet moments, the magnitude sinks in. A remote site of legend, long dismissed, becomes a locus of science and fear. The drone footage confirms that beneath the familiar world lies something alien. It reminds us that knowledge is not infinite, and even as we dominate the surface, we may be novices in the depths. The event stands as both breakthrough and warning. Exploration has value but also risk. Illumination reveals but also unsettles. Discovery opens doors we may not be ready for. As researchers reviewed the final frames of the drone's recording, a detail previously overlooked emerged in the periphery of the footage. A faint, rhythmic pattern of light pulses originating from deep within the abyss. The intervals between the flashes were mathematically consistent, almost like a sequence, a code. It didn't resemble bioluminescence or electrical discharge. The pattern's precision suggested intention, as though something within that hidden chamber was emitting structured signals. The team immediately began spectral analysis and found that the frequency of the light pulses resonated with no known natural mineral luminescence. The wavelengths shifted subtly, as if carrying data or responding to the drone's signal emissions. What had begun as an exploration of geology now edged into the territory of communication. The realization that the planet itself might host systems or entities capable of interaction changes everything. Theories began to form that this chamber could be part of an ancient geophysical network, or perhaps an interface between electromagnetic layers of the Earth. Some scientists speculated it could even be an unknown form of plasma-based consciousness, sustained by geothermal energy. Whatever the explanation, it proved that the planet was not a static ball of rock, but a living, breathing mechanism, complex and possibly self-aware in ways we cannot yet quantify. The footage and the data have ignited a philosophical revolution equal to any scientific one. If the Earth holds depths that pulse and communicate, then humanity has merely been inhabiting the thin, bright shell of a far greater organism. The discovery reframes our existence. Every tremor, every magnetic fluctuation, every unaccounted resonance could now be seen as part of a larger dialogue taking place beneath our feet. The drone didn't just explore a hole, it awakened our awareness that the planet itself might be whispering back. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on the drone entering Mel's hole? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.